Hi, this is a brief overview of our teaching workshop this summer in June 2025. And we talked about source evaluation and how we can discuss it with our teachers, what skills and concepts we have. So this is just a brief overview. There will be more information on the instruction website. First of all, we talked about defining our sources and having a common vocabulary with our writing instructors. Second, we talked about how we break down our source evaluation discussion and what skills we might teach. And then finally, teaching it in a way that's understandable to students and that incorporates our gospel understanding. As we look at defining source evaluation, there are teachers who will say they have taught source evaluation in their class, and sometimes a conversation to dig deeper on what they mean and what terms they're using and what skills they've taught their student can be super beneficial in helping you navigate what you teach versus what they teach and deciding how you can add or support what they're doing. So reinforcing the idea of lateral reading or going upstream can be a really effective way of having a conversation with the teacher and coming to a shared understanding. As we look at breaking down our source evaluation skills, the activity that we did was I had everyone search screen time, children behavior in Google, and then looking at the results, think about what criteria they were using to choose their sources. If it were an inquiry report, which on the inquiry report, that's where they look at multiple perspectives to try and just present all the ideas and information that they can gather about that topic, the narrowed topic, of course. Or they might have a research-based argument paper, which is a little more focused on the differences and the maybe places of disagreement that they would come to in some of those perspectives. So looking at your sources, if you do this activity, do you see a difference in what sources you'd select and why would there be a difference? So helping them understand that is really important. As we talk about our sources, one of the things that we do as librarians and that I think is our value that we add within the classroom is we help students understand how their searching strategies might give them results that would have some bias or different perspectives by searching words that will help them. So we want to help them also identify the bias of the source and understand that that's not a game changer, that they can still use sources that may be biased, they just have to approach it different. So when we start looking and searching, some of the tips we can give students and help them see is how to avoid asking questions that imply a certain answer. For example, our children negative, let's see, I think I've seen it more with children develop violent behaviors from playing violent video games. And so if we avoid that kind of idea of already having a solution or an idea, that would change the results. Avoid using terms that imply a certain answer. So if I say the negative effects of video games, that's what I'm going to get when I search my databases. So being a little more neutral in my language, effects of video games could be a better way of getting broad range of sources that are both positive and negative. Avoid culturally loaded terms. Plan for the types of search results you want to see. I always stop the students at a search screen when they get the results up and ask, is this giving you the information you expected to see with the question you're asking? If it's not, we adjust this keywords, we figure out different approaches for it. Maybe they have to break it down. Scan the results for better terms. I love doing this because sometimes you'll find vocabulary that you hadn't thought of or concepts or ideas that can be really useful. Humanizing your information sources is a really important concept that will help students see that they're not just dealing with the static page of text, that there are people behind it, experts, people who have experienced something, people with opinions. Tony has a really great way of an analogy that she uses, and she'll share that in another video. Finally, we want to teach source evaluation in a way that breaks it down into smaller chunks so we can make it a little bit easier so that students can understand the concepts and practice them and build on the skills that they already have. So thinking about what you're going to offer in your classrooms, for me, it might be the keyword search terms I'm using would be one of them. Maybe I talk about practical applications of lateral reading. We're going upstream. So they would see how I'm going to help them support and apply the concepts they might have already taught in class. And then they can select where they think their students need the most help. So hopefully that's been helpful. There are a couple other slides on there thinking about it in a gospel setting. We are so blessed to be able to have the gospel and be able to talk about it freely here in our university education. And so how can you incorporate that? So the experience a student has here at BYU is different than what they might have at UVU because of that great blessing that we have. Feel free to contact Tony, Stacy, or I if you've got questions or if you'd like more information. There was a handout and it will go out with this information and be loaded on the instruction website so you can get more information. I wish you well and appreciate all the teaching you do for us. Thank you.